Hello everyone, Russell Wright from networkempire.com, and I'm on the left here, and I'd like to welcome you to don'tforgetthebasics.com. It's a quick one-page site that we put up to help people understand the difference between a private blog network or a PBN and a personal brand broadcasting network, and we're going to talk about the three layers. We're going to go beyond PBNs and talk about the three layers of the long-term sustainable personal brand broadcasting network. Now we have a much longer name for this in-house in anticipation of the Semantic Web. We call it in-house jokingly the socially active Semantic Web integrated one web ring, one feed, multimedia interactive personal brand perpetual downstream broadcasting traffic system. Try to say that 3 times fast. Now, the web domination rings that we've been teaching our students, hundreds of students around the world for many years, has very general rules of thumb. Now, you don't have to try to figure it all out right now. This is a presentation or an introductory overview, but these rules of thumbs are: when we're talking about WR1s, we're generally focused on content, and we're talking generally top-notch content for a brand or organization. When we're talking about WR2, we're generally focused on traffic, and this includes PinVid, and the PinVid traffic is automatic video traffic, which we talk about in our other courses and our private members area. WR3 is generally where we focus on PageRank, domain authority, and backlinking. So when we're talking about PBN, most people in the industry, both internet marketing and SEO, when they're referring to PBN, they're generally talking about buying sites with expired domains that still have PageRank, generally to gain PageRank to their ground zero domains. In other words, to create buoyant PageRank and lift up their primary money sites on the search engines by passing them PageRank using backlinking. Okay. Now, there are 3 layers to a sustainable network, what we call a personal brand broadcasting network that we build for our clients and we teach students all around the world to build. A PBN, as I just said, focuses on PageRank and or domain authority. But a broadcasting network focuses on 1, PageRank and domain authority, 2, traffic and automatic content syndication and creation all at the same time. Now, we have trained hundreds of students around the world. Most of them excel at one of these, but not all 3. And where the web is going, you're probably going to want to learn to harmonize or integrate all these 3. That way you can have more of a sustainable network instead of building things that might last a couple weeks or a couple months, but then lose all their PageRank or due to static neglect, don't pass as much power and domain authority over the long term. All 3 layers will be required for future network sustainability, especially with Google's increasing adoption of the Semantic Web, which you can learn more about at our Semantic Web course at semanticwebtraining.com. So PageRank and domain authority. As we've discussed, primary purpose of, for most people anyways, on PBNs, for PBNs or private blog networks, and expired domain purchases to build those is for the purpose of passing PageRank. So for instance, let's say that these green arrows are pointing from sites that you've purchased via expired domains that still have PageRank, assuming that it's real PageRank, and you're passing the PageRank using backlinks and theme clustering back to your primary money site. That site gets ranked in the search engines, and then of course hopefully the transactions that come from people finding it for free on the search engines of course leads to a sale. That's pretty much the strategy I think of most PBNs, and there's nothing wrong with that. I do suggest that on your WR3 network that you specifically focus on PageRank. That's still working. I just would not have my entire empire depend upon the buying of expired domains and passing PageRank back from those domains, because there's a shelf life on those domains, and also based on our research in the Semantic Web, that stuff's not going to last forever. That technique has definitely got a shelf life. We're watching the end of it over the next 2 to 3 years. It'll still work quite a bit, especially with domain authority as the focus, which of course our friend Jimmy Kelley talks about. Just want you to have a clear distinction in your mind that only the green arrow for the purposes of this diagram is about PageRank and domain authority. Now the cool thing is that PageRank can be passed not just from sites that are PBNs or expired domain purchases, they can also come from other things that you're building and working on. So let's use the red arrow to talk about the second layer, which is content syndication or content creation. Imagine that you can take the content, pristine content preferably, from a client's corporation or brand or small business, and you can take that article and you can syndicate it downstream to other platforms also owned by the client or also owned by you. Doesn't matter if you take a snippet of that content through RSS curation. Doesn't matter if that content has been curated or scooped in sources like scoopit.com. Doesn't matter if it's been auto-published using certain plugins and techniques and RSS feed systems that we use downstream to other sites. Doesn't matter necessarily if the complete article has been syndicated or you're only taking a snippet. The point here, for purpose of demonstration, is that the red article indicates content going from its original source, what we call ground zero content, to another hub, social, or website on your network. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, normally, when you're doing a PBN or a private blog network, you're not going to publish your evergreen and core content, that's your high-end content, onto those PBNs, because there is the mythology that you really don't want those PBNs to be discovered by Google, and especially for the purposes of gaining page rank, you don't want Google to see how all those sites are networked, and we agree. That's why we put them out normally. If we're going to do PBNs, we're going to put them out on our WR3 layer so that nothing is connected. No Google dashboards are connected. No RSS connections and no authorities are connected. It's good to keep those things separate, including on separate class IPs and separate C blocks. Okay? So, but with content in a broadcasting network, we don't care. We might publish content from the client to all kinds of other sites. In fact, we might even do it automatically. In fact, we have clients who have sites running 100% through what we call RSS curation, making anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 a month. And it's not remixed content, fake content. It's simply, it's not spun content. It's remixed content. And it's authentic content with real interest articles pointing back to the original source provider of that content. And these sites get massive traffic. There's nothing tricky about them. There's no spinning. There's no gobbledygook. These are real content remix sites that are 100% automatic. Okay? So there's a bunch of ways to create content from your ground zero content. The point is that every time one of your articles is published, there's a huge number of ways to automate that content and syndicate that content or broadcast it to other types of platforms on your hub. And those platforms can range anything from blogs to Drupal accounts to Joomla accounts to social spaces to whichever. There's as many different kinds of ways to broadcast content as there are locations to put them. But if that content is good, they're going to generate traffic over time. And this idea that dupe content is a big deal does not matter when we're looking at content in this kind of way, especially the repurpose of pre-existing content. Okay? So the third layer is traffic. When that content goes to your other hubs, preferably hubs that you own, so that you can have your own golden frame, your own monetization frame, that is, you own the technology or the site on your own hosting, well, what happens is you start to get those sites indexed. The frequency of publish that we've discussed before is high. Preferably you're syndicating yourself and or other people's content in the same genre or niche or theme cluster. And of course, when they click those links, that's going to head all back to your primary transaction site where you're going to make a sale, where your buy button is occurring. Okay? So here's what happens is that over time, as you continue to broadcast content, preferably your own, your interviews, your videos, your articles, from your main site to these other locations, over time they will begin to develop some PageRank on their own. You can even provide all of your backlinks to those other hubs, and of course generate PageRank on your own through all the various methods, and layer of a web ring much further out, such as WR3 and WR4, can provide backlinking power to those PBNs. Okay, but the point that I want you to understand is that all of this nonsense about duplicate content and so on and so forth, from the perspective of a broadcasting network, is just that, nonsense. When you have excellent content with compelling ideas by compelling authors and compelling videos, and you syndicate those to multiple locations, the duplication of that content not only does not matter, it's actually good when the content is quality, and over time you will begin to start even to develop your own PageRank from those hubs with your own downstream content being syndicated. This is the difference between a broadcasting network and a PBN, or a network that's created solely for the purpose of the green arrow, gaming PageRank. There's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but you also need to be aware that there's ways to do all of it at once. That is content, that is PageRank and domain authority, and that is traffic back to your primary transaction. If you continue to do this enough, all of the locations on your network will start to build massive domain authority and massive PageRank over time, because you're continually publishing from your primary location to those locations, and they start to get traffic, and they start to get you can also start to generate almost a page rank or a domain authority through the network out of thin air. Now, there is a science to this, so it's not magic, but there is a way, as you start linking all your hubs together, to start to utilize all the PageRank and the domain authority from the network as you begin to broadcast to so many different locations. Now understand all of this works together, such as broadcasting to your Facebook fan page, your Pinterest hubs, even third-party hubs that have massive domain authority. And this is the real key to building a personal brand broadcasting network that's not super fixated or only focused on PBNs. So the pitfalls of a one-layer focus. Let's kind of look at this. For example, as we've just discussed, over-focusing on building PR domains or domain authorities for PBNs is no frequency of publish. I think that this is probably the biggest pitfall. We've had associates in our experience who have massive PBNs, and they continually buy and update those PBNs, and not done properly, they don't necessarily last. They can last if the quality of the private blogs that have been purchased have been done by an expert like Greg Morrison or Jimmy Kelley or Sue Bell or myself. When you know what you're doing, you can maintain a private blog network very well. Okay. If you don't know what you're doing, the tendency is to buy sites that are not very good. And generally speaking, most people do not publish or update the content on their private blog on their PBNs or private blog networks. Okay, and that's a problem because we have noticed that sites that have a frequency of publish are constantly pinging Google and constantly updating, even if that content is repurposed or not even 100% unique, what we call remixed or curated. Those sites begin to develop domain authority and PageRank over time. Granted, it takes a lot longer than when you're buying domains, but that's okay because it all starts to add up. If all of those are on unique IP addresses, then you start to really drive that traffic to your transaction or your money site, and that's where you make bank. Okay? The pitfalls of focusing on the layer of content only and not paying attention to PageRank and not paying attention to traffic is working too hard on long articles. Maybe you guys resemble this remark. Maybe you've experienced this, where people are trying to make money becoming a professional blogger. I'm sure you've all had friends who are working like 2 hours on a blog post and so on and so forth. The problem with that is that they're missing a lot of opportunity. Too much focus on articles that are too long and too expert and cost too much to make tends to also inhibit the frequency of publish. Okay, you want to get. I'd rather have a bunch of shorter articles going out than a really, really long article once per week. Okay, this is the frequency of publish issue. Also, the pitfall of focusing too much on over content creation is poor micro content repurposing. In other words, downstream to other domain authority sites, blogs, and social media hubs on your own network. This is huge, guys. What I'm saying here is if you're only publishing one gigantic article per week instead of maybe 3 or 4 tiny ones, then the frequency of publish doesn't go out through the personal brand broadcasting network at enough of an updated frequency. And what happens is you got to keep both your audience and the robots constantly engaged. We're in an environment where people's attention span have gone from the law of 7 to the law of 76. They need to know about you 76 times a week instead of just 7 times it used to be in the 1970s and 80s. As a result, it's better just to keep the broadcast transponder syndicating out to your network and constantly updating those things. And when you over-focus on huge, long articles, or you're too focused on the quality of your content, in other words, you're waiting for perfection, then you never make that happen. In our DWS software testing, micro-content repurposing, because we calculate all this, can save up to 35% in online marketing costs, depending upon the campaign. And I've actually seen more, but I can't prove that it's more than that. Here's another over-focus on the traffic layer. I'm sure you guys all know people who are 100% focused on traffic. The irony here is that people only focused on traffic tend to get either really low quality traffic or really expensive traffic, like pay-per-click, right? Many people emphasize low quality and general traffic that is not congruent with their topic or theme. I'm sure you've met people, and I'm sure you've never done this yourself, where you buy a lot of traffic that's not appropriate for your market or for the site that you're building, and you don't get any conversion, but you get a ton of traffic, or you find out later that it's just a bunch of bots, like going through like free click networks or something like that. That's not really, focusing on traffic has its pitfalls because a lot of people came from the industry of focusing on them, but the conversion is generally low. Paid traffic is expensive and financially unsustainable for many small businesses. So, again, the very general rule of thumb, the way we set up our domination web ring is that the WR1, that's over in here, your money site, is generally focused on content, preferably top-notch. I didn't say long. I just said quality, where the point that you're making is quality. So when I say top-notch, it might only be 300 or 400 words, but the point that you're making is expert. Probably would have been better for me to say expert quality. You're making an expert point. WR2 is generally focused on traffic. Okay, so you can automate WR2s, but it's not branded. Your WR2 network does not have your brand or your company on it. It's on separate Class Cs. It's on separate IP addresses, for sure. Okay, even though you're generating traffic with those. All right. Some of the WR2s on your network might still contain broadcasted content on those other locations, and I'm fine with that, just as long as you realize that the purpose of those locations is to broadcast you. And you can broadcast your content from your WR1 without telling everybody that you own those. And you can broadcast those on separate IP addresses, and you can continue to publish and get traffic to your upstream sources and to your buy button. W3 is generally focused on PageRank, domain authority, and backlinking, and that is W3. A lot of the sites in your W3 can remain a traditional PBN, and where you're using all that PageRank to point to both your WR2 and your WR1 sites to increase their domain authority and PageRank. In other words, you can use all the traditional PBN methods you've learned to increase the domain and domain authority and PageRank on any site within your network. And then, of course, it all passes upstream. So PageRank stacking is amazing because then the sites that you're publishing your own material on have the benefits of the PageRank you've used on your PBNs, and you get all the traffic and the content syndication throughout your network. This is how you start to develop massive tsunami of traffic, where you're getting so much traffic to your buy buttons that you have to literally stack it. You have to get your site, your core money site, on its own server. Okay, so that's what we're really trying to get you to move towards. And of course, beyond this, this is an oversimplification of the presentation I've just given you. The next big step in broadcasting is to begin to broadcast all of your content on a massive scale to dozens, if not hundreds, of domains with massive domain authority to create, again, even more of a tsunami of traffic throughout your broadcast network. Hope that makes sense. We look forward to seeing you at themezoomcertification.com. And if you want more information about how we put all this stuff together, please do visit us at networkempire.com. My name is Russell Wright. We look forward to seeing you on the inside.